Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first story is titled, If Your Pay Raise Isn't Enough, Quit. This took place in 1992-1993. I got a job as a security guard after leaving the army. The company refused to pay very much, so they had high turnover. Because of the turnover, they had very small raises built in at 90 days, 6 months and a year as an incentive to stay on. My 1-year anniversary rolls around and I don't see my 50 cents an hour raise in my paycheck, but something more like 35 cents. So I called the boss. Supposedly they wanted to give all employees a raise, so they did. Furthermore, I wasn't going to get a raise for 1 year, my 1-year raise, because you just got a raise. No one gets 2 raises at once. If your pay raise isn't enough, quit. I spent the next week calling in sick and showing up late while job hunting. Called my last day, at the end of my shift, and told them I was done and they could find someone else, giving them no notice at all. Panic mode ensued. Everyone else was at 40 hours for the week and they hated paying overtime. One of the salaried managers had to cover for me. I'm a teacher now, near retirement. My raises are still crap. Another edit, the MC is the fact I quit since they told me to, and did it in such a way that they were screwed for covering the position. The fact a salaried manager had to cover my shift for a couple days was the icing. The next story is titled, You Won't Listen to Me? Wonder if you will hear this sploosh. My wife had her water break at home with our first kid. So we made the drive to the hospital, made pretty decent time if I do say so myself. Normally it takes about 30 to 35 minutes, but we did it in exactly 20, door to door. As she got out of my truck, there was a sploosh as more water gushed out. It soaked her pants and socks and shoes. It was pretty funny to see her standing there, soaked and having steam come off her pants and shoes. It was steaming because it was early March, so still below freezing. We go through the admitting process that I guess you can cut the line in when you're in active labor. We were told this after waiting for 4 others, but I digress. As we get up to labor and delivery, the nurse tells my wife she has to sit in the other chair, not the wheelchair I pushed her up in. My wife tries to say she should stay where she is but gets cut off. So she tries again and gets cut off yet again. So I figured maybe the nurse would listen to me, and I try to tell her that really my wife should stay in this chair because of all the splooshes so far. The nurse is getting shorter and grumpier, not letting us speak up about the upcoming monsoon of baby juice this lady will have to be mopping up soon. My wife and I look at each other and mentally say that if that's what the nurse wants, that's what she's gonna get. My wife shrugs and says, okay, I'll sit in that chair. The nurse was trying to look busy with the papers so she won't have to help my wife stand up and move chairs. As I help my wife stand up and get ready to clear out of the splash zone, exactly what we knew was going to happen happened. The nurse, now with wet shoes, looks at us a bit angrily at first, then lets out a resigned sigh and says, I should have asked if your water had broke. We said, yep, that's what we were trying to say. Then my wife and I squished and sloshed our way to the delivery room. A mere 4 hours and 23 minutes later we met our beautiful son. The next story is titled, I don't care if your dog peed on your notebook, you need to turn it in. This was years ago in high school, back in my chemistry class. I also had an 18-year-old senile mini poodle who would pee wherever he wanted to. We were working on these notebooks all year and would turn them in for a massive chunk of our grades. I had done maybe half of them, because I wasn't a good student back in the day. So it comes around to the end and I'm frantically trying to fill stuff in, with half of it being fake things I can't remember. It was late and I had my books on the floor near my desk. I went to sleep because I was so exhausted. Next morning I wake up and my dog has not only peed on my notebook, he got my math book and science book too. I went to school and told my teacher what happened. She didn't believe me, and looking back, quite right of her, but she did say I was the first to use this particular excuse. She said if I didn't bring in the notebook I would fail the class. I asked if she was sure, she said do it. So I went home and put the notebook in a gallon Ziploc bag and brought it to school. When the time came around to turn it in I put it on her desk. She stopped mid-sentence and stared at the book, her brain caught on the fact that the dog had actually peed on my notebook. Then she told me to throw it away and said she would be fair and give me a B grade for my notebook. I passed the class, thanks to my poodle peeing on my notebook. The next story is titled, We Like You Where You Are. My very first job I got was a cart pusher at Walmart. I was 16 years old. I wanted to be a cashier so that I wasn't outside so much. After maybe 5 months working there, I noticed that they are hiring for cashier position. I went to HR, staffing, and asked them if I could be enrolled in the training. They told me no, and said something along the lines of, "We are happy with having you where you are at." I was a bit of a chaotic little crap at that age and the gears started turning. Me, but you are hiring new people to be cashiers, right? Yes. Me, so, if I was not employed here and I applied, then I would be considered for the cashier position, is that right? Well, yes, that is true. Me, okay, then let's do that. I would like to be a cashier, so I would like to resign. Clearly baffled, you would need to provide a letter in writing that you were going to resign. I wrote a letter of resignation on a post-it and handed it to This was all at the beginning of my shift, mind you. Near the end of my shift, I was asked to speak with They were informing me that I had been enrolled in the cashier education classes. A week later, I was working indoors and had a $1 per hour raise. The next story is titled, Don't Want to Open the Door for Your Package? Fine then, no package for you. I work as a bike courier delivering all sorts of various package of your online orders. I've been on this job for around 6 years on and off and have always made an effort to be kind and patient with all my customers. However, given the nature of my job, we do our best at keeping the pace high. The rules for delivery are as follows. Try the address. If no response, try a neighbor if a neighbor is available. Try between 2/5 neighbors if possible, leave it with them. If not, we return the package to the depot and try another 2 times on the next day. If still not possible to deliver, we hold the package 2 weeks until finally shipping it back to the original sender. There is some discretion left to each courier on what to do with the package. Our branch rarely has packages that are not delivered over 3 days, and pretty much never have them sent back to sender. However, it does happen. This particular day I was doing the evening shift, delivering various packages to people's homes. It is one of the better delivery times, since it's past 6 p.m. and most people are home from work by then and able to receive their orders with no hassle. About halfway into the shift, I arrive at this lovely suburban home. I have a relatively big box to deliver to them. To my delight, as I walk up to their door, I see their whole family having dinner through the window. Now, I'm no fan of disturbing family time, but they ordered something and it's my job to deliver it too. So I give them a little wave as I approach their door and decide not to ring the bell as they saw me flailing their package around. The package is also very clearly branded from a specific brand, so they should know it is something they ordered. They all look at me for a hot minute and continue eating their food. Odd. But maybe they just didn't see me. I ring the bell and look through their window again. They all look at me, I point to their package and lift an eyebrow. They all look back at me, look at their food and continue eating. Alright. Now I'll ring once more, but this is getting frustrating. I ring one more time, glance through their window and basically shove the package as close to the window as possible as if it's a portal to their backsides. And here is when MC starts. They look at me and now visibly annoyed by my presence they shoo me away. Now this pisses me off. I treat people with respect and it's been a good 10 minutes I've been at their door. Wasting everyone's time. So I walk back to my bike, shove the package in my backpack and look at my tracker app. I have to report the status of the package. Delivered, neighbors, back to depot, not possible to deliver. I decide to look at what our interaction was. Which was a refusing to accept package. They saw me. Saw their package and indicated to me they didn't want it. So I marked it as such. Meaning it's now delivered back to sender. Back at the office I mentioned this ordeal to find out the particular address has been acting like this ever since and my super basically said it was all good by me. Week later I found out they also blacklisted the address and refused to deliver any packages there anymore. They now have to either order through different services or pay for a different shipping company or pick up at our depot instead. The next story is titled, This Isn't a Real Contract. You need to take this seriously. This story occurs about 6 years ago, in my high school chemistry class. I don't know what made me think of it, or why I had never thought of it before, but here you go. TLDR at the bottom. My high school was a project-based high school, meaning that most of my classes were centered around group projects. This meant working with students that we normally didn't want to work with to do projects we didn't want to do. Most classes had a rewritten general contract that protected students if they were the only ones to do work, as well as giving general roles to each member of the group, but still, most project contracts were generally ignored. In the first week of my sophomore year, I'm taking a chemistry class with my best friend, and we are given the opportunity to choose a partner to do a very quick project. My best friend and I quickly agreed to knock this project out together. I believe the project was as simple as finding an at-home science experiment and recreating it while describing the very basic chemistry principles. Think using heat to change states, or using baking as an example to describe how combining different elements can create a new compound. The chemistry teacher didn't have a preset contract like other professors and instructed us that the rest of the day we would be writing up our contracts and sending them to her by the end of the period. Now, one thing to know about my best friend and I was that we constantly were doing random fun projects outside of school without a problem, and both agreed that the project contracts were generally dumb. So when the teacher told us to create our contract, we didn't take it seriously. We had 3 stipulations in our contract, and our signatures at the bottom, with a very brief sentence stating that a failure to follow the stipulations would result in a removal of the group. Our 3 stipulations were as follows. Don't be annoying. Don't get annoyed. Get the work done. Signed, me and best friend. We sent the contract to the teacher roughly 10 minutes after she gave us all instructions, and we began to bullcrap the rest of the class period away. Teacher then proceeds to print our contract with a handful of other groups, and walk down the hall to get the contracts. I don't know if she didn't look at it before she printed, but when she gets back to the classroom, she has a look of pure disgust. Op and best friend, are you serious? This isn't a real contract. You need to take this seriously. Send me a new group contract by the beginning of class tomorrow. And that's what we did. If she wanted a real contract, she was getting a real contract. I went to my best friend's house after school that day and we proceeded to write up a 20-page contract, with all the bells and whistles. I'm talking preamble, definitions, group member rights, obligations, provisions, action steps, steps of removal, signatures, as well as random articles, sections, and clauses. The whole 9 yards. If there was a remote chance of it happening, we included it. We emailed her the new contract that night and awaited the next class. The next day, we walk into her class ready for whatever reaction came our way. We sit down, and after explaining to all the other groups what we were doing that day, she walks over to our desks, plops the contract on the table, and says, "You guys are ridiculous. Sign it." That contract was used for every group project the rest of high school, whether we were given a rewritten one or not. After all, we needed to take it seriously, didn't we? The next story is titled, "Play Something Without Cursing." No problem. My mum asked me to take her to the doctor this morning for a checkup. I, 21 meters, hate driving her around because she makes car rides difficult. She hates my taste in music. It's a mix of lo-fi, hip-hop, and alt-rock that always seems to be too loud for her sensitive ears. Today's playlist had a selection of Chance the Rapper, Toby Lou, and Smino, great artists if you're trying to get into new music. My mum is a devout Christian woman and I am her BSTRD of a gay son. Needless to say, I have a higher tolerance for cussing in music. I just listen to the beat and bounce around. My mum and I were bopping our heads along to Amphetamine by Smino, one of my all-time favorites, so I turned the volume up. Just in time for an F-bomb. Mum, nope. I can't listen to that. Me, shuts off the music, fine. Mum, after an awkward silence, it's just that I'm praying. You know your stepdad is going to chemo today. Can you please find something with no cussing in it? Me, sure. Not a problem. Now I'm a little ticked off. Here's the thing, I don't see how her praying or Pop's chemo had anything to do with my music selection or why my music would interfere. But, as a mischievous grin came across my face, I did as I was told. You want clean music? Well, do I have a show for you? I quickly tapped through my phone and found a VeggieTales playlist. Suddenly the lyrics to the Water Buffalo song played through the speaker, inciting rapturous laughter from my mum and I as we sped along the interstate to our destination. Me, well, you did say no cussing. We laughed about it on the way back from the doctor's office. It's nice seeing her smile despite all the craziness going on in our lives right now. The next story is titled, You Have to Accept My Coupons, It's the Rules. So when I worked for Target I was over guest service, and this included the registers and self-checkout. We had a lot of issues with coupon scammers. Now normally I wouldn't care, but it had gotten so crazy that we were losing tons of money due to it. The manufacturer will only pay out if it is valid in most cases, and only for the amount shown, and we're needing to crack down in order to avoid more issues. One example is a lady applying a $5 off a new Swiffer $20, but the machine would sometimes not catch it if they applied it to a $4 item, so they get $1 free for whatever. People do this kind of thing a lot, and will just go resell the items or return them to a different store for profit. The POS systems are smart but prone to mistakes. For this reason, the scammers loved self-checkout. I was covering the break for the employee working self-checkout and I noticed a lady doing a lot of weird things, inserting tons of coupons. Soon she called me over because one wasn't working. I could clearly see a lot of high-value coupons and not a lot of high-value items. She said not all her coupons were working correctly and if I could just manually enter the discount because we have to accept her coupons, that it was the rules because these coupons were correct. I said I would need to get the coupons out from the tray to confirm them, and then I could. I used my manager keys to open the machine and took out the coupons inside. Luckily it was at the beginning of the day and hers were the only coupons. As I looked through the coupons and looked at her stuff, not bagged yet, I confirmed what I knew to be true, lots of fraud. On principle, I acknowledge the cleverness of it all, but people's jobs were at risk from the loss and I don't like to personally be scammed. I told her I would correct all the coupons, so I quickly went in and took out the ones that didn't apply, and left the valid ones. I handed her a stack of approximately 15 coupons and let her know they did not apply. I told her that I appreciated her calling me over to verify the coupons for her and that I would make sure to let the other stores in the area know of the error so that we can correctly apply our rules that say we take coupons. In the end, her total went up about $50 and she left without getting anything. Thank God she insisted on following the rules, she would have gotten away with free things. The next story is titled, You Want Pedantry? You'll get pedantry. The background, I work at a club, think country club for the lower middle class, that holds raffles and such games as incentives for people to choose us. Because of this, as well as a liquor license, we also hold a gambling license. Chuck is an elderly member of the club and has been coming here for years. He has a little clout and is a recognized face. Starting a couple of weeks ago, Chuck began being very annoyed that with a certain raffle-type game that we run, our random number generator will occasionally produce the same number twice in a row. After all, it's random. He asked us to check the rules and see if that was okay. Side note, the branch of the government that monitors gambling and gambling licenses in NZ is called the Department of Internal Affairs, or GIA. I personally went to the GIA website and trawled through all the rules relevant to this type of gambling, and I found nothing. I told Chuck as much and thought that would be the end of it. Of course not. To make a long story short, Chuck went to the GIA himself, and found someone who agreed with him. We got an email telling us to stop, citing a rule that wasn't on the website. The rule doesn't explicitly state that we can't have the same number twice in a row. It is his interpretation of these rules that he is forcing us to comply with. Okay, fine. We won't argue, this is the guy who renews our gambling license. Chuck wins. Of course he doesn't. See, Chuck's favorite drink is a quadruple whiskey on the rocks. In NZ the largest drink you can serve is a double. Quadruples just aren't allowed. He gets around this by ordering a double whiskey on the rocks and a double whiskey shot. He then pours the shot into the other glass and happily takes his quadruple away. Technically legal, but by a certain interpretation of the law, not okay. Chuck will never have his favorite drink again. And he doesn't get to complain. Because he's been very clear that loopholes aren't okay. What a prick. Edit, I've been informed I didn't include enough fallout. I wasn't the first to deny him the quadruple, but I saw it happen. He responded very quietly. Face just kind of fell out of his "I'm gonna get a quadruple whiskey" smile. And I saw him think, oh crap. Then he amended his order to a double, paid sadly, and buggered off. The next story is titled, "You Wanna Camp in My Spot? Go Ahead." But tomorrow is another day. We arrived at a national campground early to find the perfect camping site before it filled up for the night. Bought and paid for our site and placed the tag on the post to show that it was taken and paid for. We even left a lawn chair in the site, which is a common signal for occupied site, as we took our RV into town to go out for supper. Came home late and drove quietly into the campground just as it was closing, only to find that there were 3 rowdy guys who had moved our chair, taken off our tag and put their tent in our site and were in the middle of drinking the night away. I explained that the site was already taken and paid for and they'd have to find another one, but they said they weren't moving. Went back to the main office to find the ranger was locking up. He heard my story and said, "Sorry, the campground is full, you're just going to have to share the spot with them tonight," even though they hadn't paid for it. Went back, and crammed our RV into the spot and then stayed up for hours listening to those loudmouths drinking and making noise till they finally went to sleep in the wee hours. I was steaming mad. Got up late the next day, got ready to leave and the party boys were still fast asleep. So as we were ready to pull out, I let the RV roll forward till the front bumper was pushing into the side of the tent, then turned on the lights, revved the crap out of the engine and laid on the horn for a good long minute. There was a lot of movement suddenly and I backed up and left before the groggy boys could figure out that it wasn't a train running through their tent, just a pissed off camper. Still makes me smile. But hey, we shared the spot just like the ranger said. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comment.